Welcome to Tenacity with Sonia C, the podcast where entrepreneurs, founders, and ambitious professionals come to learn from those who have walked the path, navigating challenges and achieving success. Whether it's thriving in business, pivoting, scaling for growth, fundraising, or finding work-life balance, dealing with loneliness, adversity, or overcoming personal struggles. Our guests share the insights and strategies that have empowered them to level up. I'm your host, Sonia, and let's get started. My guest today is Aubrey Amatelli, the founder and CEO of PayRio, the first payment provider exclusively focused on cannabis and alternative medicines. Aubrey's career began at JP Morgan, where she spent over a decade rising to executive director and leading fintech partnerships in Silicon Valley. But instead of staying in the comfort of corporate, she chose to leap into the most underbanked, misunderstood, and regulated industries out there, cannabis. Today, she's not only led PayRio to profitability in under a year, but she's doing it all as a single mom of three, pushing through stigma, funding barriers, and burnout to reshape what financial access looks like in alternative medicine. Aubrey also serves on the Banking and Financial Services Committee for the National Cannabis Industry Association, where she's advocating for the very reforms founders in this space so desperately need. This episode is about grit, strategy, and leading with conviction, especially when the system isn't built for you. Hi, Aubrey. How are you? Welcome to the show.
I'm great. Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah, me too. Let's dive right in. There's no time like the present. Let's not waste any time.
Absolutely.
You've spent a decade at JP Morgan, rising through the ranks in Silicon Valley. What made you walk away from that stability to enter one of the riskiest and most stigmatized industries like cannabis?
Oh, that's a great question. I wonder that sometimes, actually. Uh,
Yeah.
so, when I was at JP Morgan, it was the time where I was having my babies. I have three wonderful children and I wanted stability at the time. And I didn't
Mm,
know it then, but I also had the most amazing education at JP Morgan, learning from the biggest bank in the world. And growing up in the Silicon Valley, I had startups in my blood, I felt like, right? So the
mm,
big bank was amazing, but after 10 years, I was getting that itch. I wanted to go back up into the startup world. And at the end of my career at JP Morgan, I was working with fast growing startups. I was a commercial banker in the technology group, and I wanted to be in the C-suite of a startup. I had the opportunity to be a chief revenue officer, and everyone at JP Morgan was supportive of me leaving to take that role. And my kids were grown up, a little bit older at that
mhm.
time. So I took the leap of faith and left and haven't looked back, but it's a whole new world out here.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
What what did life look like for you when you decided to launch PayRio? Paint us a picture of the doubts, or the clarity you had in that moment.
Ooh, yeah. So, I when I started PayRio, I leaned on my passion. So I'm passionate about payments. It's what I've lived and breathed my whole career. Passionate about alternative medicines, cannabis, and just, growing up in California, I've been around it pretty much my whole life. And so I knew I had a superpower in payments and that knowledge, and I wanted to bring that to an industry that struggles with payments. And so I found
Mm,
my niche. Also, being a single mom and, coming from a company after JP Morgan, I worked for a year at a company, a startup, where I was the only female in their C-suite and board. I really wanted to have, women, power, like women power, women leadership, support stay-at-home moms in my at
hmm
PayRio. So I had that mission and those goals in mind, and I just, hit the ground running in terms of just, it was me. doing 100 cold calls a day and bringing on passionate people who are willing to work for free and commission only. But I just took the leap of faith and believed in myself from the very start.
Yeah. I mean, I'm in tech as well, and I realize like it's such a male dominated space. But so is cannabis. So how was that like for you, but being both of those spaces?
I think I've, been in male-dominated spaces my whole career. I
Yeah.
started, in the car industry right out of college, which is definitely male,
Very.
moving over to JP Morgan. So it's something that I've been used to. But being a female founder, now that I feel like is even more rare to be a female
Mm,
founder. But my entire career prepared me for that. Um, Being recognized and I think taken seriously at the beginning, especially having a company that didn't have any recognition or any name, was a lot harder. I had to push a lot harder to build the trust with other companies, trust in my that my company would take care of them.
mm.
But it's just staying confident and showing them that you have the knowledge to support the business and just leaning, leaning on yourself and making sure that they understand, what you're talking about.
Did you ever have moments that you doubted yourself?
Whew. Not on the payment knowledge, no, but there are decisions that maybe I made, and every founder makes mistakes, or everyone makes
Mm,
mistakes.
yeah.
And in the moment, like right after that mistake is made, you might doubt yourself, like, oh my gosh, why didn't maybe my gut said not to do that, but I did it anyway. But what I found is the mistakes that I've made along the time, that I've started PayRio and along this journey, it's actually going to be 3 years in a couple of days, August 2nd. But along the journey, the mistakes that I've made are the best lessons that I've learned,
Hmm.
and the biggest growth opportunities that the company's had. So
Yeah.
yes, there is like a little bit of doubt right after that mistake where it really hurts. But then like once you push through that and you look back, then you realize what a gift that mistake was.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think that that's how we continue learning, right? If you're not making mistakes, then are you really learning something new? I'm not sure. I feel like those are the hardest lessons you can get.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, most founders take years to hit profitability. I mean, I know founders have been going at it for like 10 years and still don't have revenue. And especially like in emerging sectors like cannabis for you, what made or break decisions helped PayRio become profitable in under 12 months? Because that's not the norm. That's unique. How did you do that?
Well, first of all, the company's self-funded, so that helps with profitability. But the way I set up the structure was with 1099 sales, sales team, or
Hmm.
you know, they worked super hard, and they got commission for what they sold. And so I'm sharing the revenue with my team. And the
Hmm.
harder they worked, the more money they earned, the company would earn as well. And with that, I was doing all the operations, I was doing the accounting, I was doing everything on the business side to keep those expenses low, and we're
Hmm.
able to take the revenue and recycle that into the growth. And so that business model was what we used at the beginning to get the company going. And as we continue to grow, then I needed to hire on help on the operations, but the revenues were enough that it could support that. So we started slow, and I think that's a big piece of how we became profitable quickly. Was we didn't rush out of the gate. We started slow, and I was just recycling the revenue and
Hmm.
very cognizant of my ROI from the beginning. I wanted to make sure that
Yeah.
everyone who came on board, there was immediate, there was ROI that I could see, and I could tell that the work that they did was returning, to the
Hmm.
company.
So, how long did it take you to build the platform, launch it, and then start bringing in sales?
So the platform essentially is through many different partnerships that I've created in the
Mm-hmm.
industry, and that took a lot of time. So the technology in payments in cannabis, there are so many different types of technology that get you to the ultimate goal, which is accepting credit and debit cards in cannabis. Cannabis is federally illegal. And so
Mm-hmm.
because of that, dispensaries, for example, cannot accept payments like a coffee shop next door. Visa and MasterCard follow the federal government ruling of
Oh,
how payments are used. And so Square and Stripe and Adyen and some of the biggest payment processors, they will not touch a dispensary. And so when Visa and MasterCard and the big payment for providers won't work with dispensaries, it takes very unique technologies and unique flow, like a flow of funds to be able to
mm,
support a dispensary. So it's, part of it is going out there and searching and finding technology partners who are willing to create and bring technologies to market that can support the dispensaries in a compliant manner.
wow. I love that. I'm in Canada, so cannabis is legal here,
Oh,
but I never really thought about the fact that, yeah, like how do you, I never even like thought about it. How do I just figured you pay with your credit card or your debit. That's so
oh,
unique. So is there anyone else doing this, or are you like, are you basically dominating the market?
oh, I wish. No, there are a lot of companies doing this. What's unique about PayRio is that we are focused in on cannabis and alternative medicines, and we really found our niche. Um, my entire team, everyone on my team is passionate about these industries, which is really great. And we see
Mm,
how we're opening up the opportunity for dispensaries. We also support the psilocybin industry, hemp industry. A very new one over here in the US is peptides. Peptides have struggled to find payment solutions. And
mm,
we see how businesses come to us needing a payment solution and they leave now being able to expand their business and ultimately provide easier access to medicines for consumers, right?
yeah.
So mhm.
That's awesome. I love it. Cannabis is an alternative medicine industries, um, are often shut out of traditional banking, like you mentioned. What's one story that captures just how broken the system is and how you're trying to fix it?
So uh, there's there's so many, but I would say what happens so many times is that, a dispensary is operating and all of a sudden their payment solution is shut off, completely shut off, and it's
Wow.
usually on a Friday. And so they have to turn and just be a cash only solution. So consumers are coming in used to using their debit card or their credit card, and all of a sudden they are turned away and they, have to go to an ATM or are unable to
Mm,
pay. So this operation, all of a sudden their revenues and their sales are cut in half, and they don't know when they're going to get their card option open again. And so many times it just, the payment options, it's kind of up in the air. And what we talk about a lot at PayRio is redundancy, making sure you have redundant solutions. So you have your primary solution, but always have a secondary solution available in case
mm,
one goes down to protect your business. But the banking or the payments, it could be frozen at any time. And so the industry is just facing a lack of, they're always on their toes. You
mm,
never know if you're going to wake up and you're going to have your funds are going to be frozen on the banking side or the payment side. You don't know if you're going to have card options or cash only. So it's a difficult situation. You know, this industry has never been able to experience a normalized payment and shopping experience ever in the US.
yeah.
Like in Canada, you can just go into a dispensary and shop. This industry hasn't even gotten to the normal payment solution. So they're
Mm,
still learning, right? We haven't even
yeah.
gotten to the normalization yet.
Do you think that'll ever change in the US?
Absolutely, I do. It's just going to take time. It's been, in talks each time a new president comes. Is this going to change? And then
Yeah.
I don't know if it will happen this term. So it comes up and we get excited and then, it fades. So I don't think it's going to happen in the next couple of years, maybe 4 years, who knows? Not
Yeah.
anytime soon, unfortunately.
So let's just say that it does eventually become legal and everything is cool. What's going to happen to a business like yours? You're sort of like in the startup space. Yes, you're already working with those companies, but all of a sudden it's legalized and the big guys can come out and be like, now we can support you. Is there a risk for your type of company if something like that was to happen?
Absolutely. I know that, the service that I provide has a lifespan because
Mm,
all of the dispensaries use point of sale solutions.
yeah.
I talk about Toast. Toast over in the US is an incredible solution. It changed restaurant point of sales. It took
Yeah.
point of sale to the table where you could pay. The point of sale and the payment were integrated. The founder of that company came to a very large point of sale in cannabis. So, point of sale and integrated payments is the future of cannabis when cannabis is federally legal. But until cannabis is federally legal, the payments have to be separated in most cases. There are integrated payments, but those are very unstable. So we are the
Mm,
separated payment
ah,
solution. When it's federally legal, the point of sales are all going to integrate. So there is a life cycle to what we're doing, but we're supporting merchants in different ways. We also have B2B payments, we have e-commerce payments. And
okay.
so the deep relationships we're making in dispensaries are growing to many different other methods of payments with our customers.
Yeah.
And that side of our business is growing. So, we're not worried. We're just happy to provide a solution in the interim, however long that interim is.
Yeah. But I mean, if it did change, could you not pivot to become part of a connection to a POS system?
It would be great to partner or be acquired or maybe even acquire a point of
Mm,
sale system. So I have different ideas and thoughts in the meantime.
yeah.
I'm thinking all about it and which direction we'd want to go. But as we stand today, our solution, would be gobbled up by a point of sale.
Right, 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 right. Okay. Interesting.
Mhm.
Well, let's talk a little bit about how to run a company. Building a fintech startup is brutal on its own. Doing it as a single mom, like you mentioned, of three is next level. What's been your hardest parenting moment while building PayRio, and what did it teach you?
Ooh, yeah. When you said that, like I had a moment flash into my head. I had a partner that one of those gut feelings was like, this isn't it was too good to be true, but I still went forward with it, invested a lot of money into building a product with a partner, and ultimately that partnership didn't work and that partner went away with a lot of money, and it was a big learning lesson for me. What I did learn is I could build a product with my incredible team, and we executed and we built a beautiful product. What I learned was to trust my gut and how to get through a huge financial loss, and make it through. But during that financial loss, we had to be really scrappy internally and be very tight on our expenses. And I had to also personally be tight on my expenses at the family, because at the end of the day, my employees will get paid and the pay cut comes from me, right? It comes
Yeah.
from even my personal bills. So I had to sit my kids down at the table, let them know what happened with the partnership because they knew that person well, and let them know we had to, cut expenses and be very tight. And, I think as a parent, it was, I had to be open and vulnerable and let them know what was happening and let them into my work life as well. Because I think
Mm,
children, the whole reason I do this is to provide for my children. And, I might look easy to them because mommy goes to the office and she comes home. But it was
yeah.
a time where I realized I needed to open up and share that it's not always easy and they could, be part of it and support, us as a team through that.
Yeah, I love that. And like, how old are your kids?
Now they're 13, 11, and 9. Yeah.
Yeah, but you're giving them like such life lessons at such a young age that they'll take away forever, right? So and for you to sit them down, that's very mature. I don't think a lot of mothers would do that because you want to protect your kids from that stuff, right? But I
Yeah.
think being open, it probably gave you a lot of relief too, right?
Yeah, it did
Yeah.
because I was holding that all in, and it was a big one. It was a tough one, and it's almost like I also needed the support. We needed to do this together.
Yeah.
I didn't, they couldn't we couldn't go to the we couldn't go to the movies, or just simple things that we couldn't go out to dinner. We really needed to tighten up to make it through. It was
Yeah.
lost. So big
But
lessons.
then you also had their support and that probably gave you a whole different feeling, right?
Yes, exactly.
Instead of having to hide it. That's interesting. Um, can you share a moment when something completely failed at PayRio, a decision, a product, like you mentioned, a partnership, but that was before that might have blown up, and how did you rebuild from it? I love talking about lessons learned, so that's what this is really about, like a big moment, a big lesson that might have turned everything around for you, and how did you come out of it? Because not
Oh,
everyone is able to, you know, come out of those mistakes.
yes. So a big moment was, we had a solution that I would say 90% of our customers were using. It was a great solution. It was generating a lot of revenue. It was, very solid for the customers. It was one of a kind in the industry at that time, and our
Mm.
customers loved it. And it was taking off. I actually took my first vacation in a very long time to Paris to visit one of my good friends. The moment I landed, the solution crashed.
Oh no.
Solution crashed for 4 days. I didn't know when it
Oh.
was going to come up. And at that time, my gut instinct was like my instinct was just to not take care of myself and go straight back home and handle it. But
Mm-hmm.
I like decided to, take care of myself. I was going to a yoga retreat and let my amazing team, handle it with guidance. And so they handled it. We did lose customers. Ultimately, we got the solution back up in 4 days. We did have to change the solution a little, which didn't make it as great as it was before, but it was now compliant in a way that it needed to be. And so we lost business. I learned my team is incredible, even more incredible. They really stepped up. I
Yeah.
also learned that I can take time off and put myself first. But the biggest lesson was we learned redundancy in that time.
Mm.
Now all of our solutions have redundancy built in. So if that does happen again, that we can just kind of switch the rails to a new rail where we just had one.
Yeah.
We had all our eggs in that one basket, and now we can switch so our customers don't have to be down for 4 days. It might be, an hour or two or maximum 24 hours. So lots of learning lessons in that one. But I think the biggest one was kind of putting myself first, not
Yeah.
back, because at the end of the day, um, I need to be in a good place to lead the company.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm going to make an assumption. Correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm just thinking about myself, like being in Paris and my team calls me that one of our solutions crashed. I don't know if I'd be able to function. I think I would go into full blown panic mode. You answered that question in such a calm manner that I don't know if I believe you. Did you panic at first?
Oh, I
Tell
panicked. I panicked. I was panicked. But the time change was great because when I woke up, no one's waking up till 3 p.m. in Paris. So like
Yeah.
the majority of the morning, I can't freak out as much because like no one's up, everyone's sleeping in the US. So I at least got to enjoy that. At the same time, there was certain moments where there's nothing you could do. You're waiting for the
Yeah.
IT team and the development team to make changes and fix things, and the customer conversations were happening with my team. They were calling the
Yeah.
customers, they were fixing it on that end. But man, that was tough. That was a tough.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It builds resilience for sure.
Yes.
And now you have like backup plans, which is always a
Mhm.
good thing to do. A lot of us get like really passionate about what we're doing and we just keep building, building, building. We never really think about backup plans until there's a major crash and your whole world comes crashing down with it, right?
Yeah, I mean, those 4 days we weren't generating revenue.
Yeah.
80% of our revenue stopped, and we didn't know if it was going to come back. And that was scary. That was really scary.
And I guess at the same time you said you lost some clients.
Mhm.
I'm going to assume that means they lost their confidence in you.
Yeah, exactly. Even though it was out
Yeah.
of our control, and if we had that redundancy built in, we wouldn't have lost the clients. And so it was a big lesson for us. Mhm.
Were you able to get any of those clients back over time?
Absolutely. We actually won Best Cannabis Company to Work For in 2025, which was an incredible honor. And my team, the customer success, we're 24/7, always answering the phone. I took so much of what I learned from JP Morgan into this company.
Mm,
You can get a hold of us at any time. My calendar links on our website. Like you can book a calendar with me. So we have a lot of our customers, almost all of them stay in our ecosystem. And every time we have a new product, we reach out to our ecosystem and they might come back for a new product. So
mm.
yeah, we have a close relationship with our community.
That's great. I think that's the best way to go.
Mhm.
You're now on the NCIA's Banking and Financial Services Committee. What's one change you're pushing for that you could shift the future of cannabis finance?
Ooh, that's a great question. So the committee gets together once a month to talk about what's going on in the banking and world. Payments come second to banking. So
Mm,
we need the Safer Banking Act to pass before payments really comes into play. The Safer Banking Act would essentially um, make it so that all banks could bank cannabis without facing many regulations and fines and fees. Right now, not all banks bank cannabis, and if a bank does bank cannabis, the cost for a dispensary or a farm or an operator is very, very high. As a business
mm,
that doesn't touch cannabis, you can bank for free, right? A cannabis business has a very high cost. So the Safer Banking Act would make banking accessible to cannabis businesses or ancillary businesses. It would also, I think, really change the way the federal government looked at banking at cannabis and maybe even be a step towards legalization. So that would then go to payment. So it's just a group that gets together. We do podcasts, we do blogs, and we want to educate the politicians on what the changes in the Safer Banking Act, what they mean, because at the end of the day, we are in cannabis and we think about it all the time. But a lot of the
hmm
politicians are unaware of all the different acts that are going on. So it's our way of getting the word out there.
Okay. Well, we're coming up on time, but before we wrap up, for founders listening who feel stuck or overwhelmed, what's one mindset shift or lesson you'd pass on to help them move forward today?
So go back to your roots, think of take a moment to take a deep breath and meditate on why did you start your company?
Mm,
What was the spark? What was the passion in you? Like what was driving you to start your company or move towards that goal? And where are you now in your journey? Are you still there? Is that spark, is that passion part of your journey, or have you kind of swayed off that path, and how can you get back on it? Staying with that root of why you started, and staying as close to that as you can, or always having that as part of your journey, I think, at least for me, keeps me motivated and keeps me here. So that's
mm.
like part of me. Every step of the way, it's a piece of what I do.
I love it. Well, Aubrey, thank you so much for joining me today and sharing your experience and your journey through this whole cannabis world. Uh, I really enjoyed our conversation and I hope the best for you. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I had a great time.
I want to thank Aubrey for joining me today and sharing not just her wins, but the challenges and rebuilds behind them. What stuck with me most is how she navigates an industry stacked with stigma, all while staying profitable, mission driven, and showing up for her kids. For any founder feeling like the odds are against them, Aubrey's story is proof that success isn't about waiting for the system to change, it's about building your own lane through it. And that's a wrap. To our listeners, thank you for joining me on this journey of learning, growth, and inspiration. Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast on your favorite platform and connect with our community on social media. I'd love to hear your feedback, so leave a review and let me know what topics you'd want to explore in future episodes. Remember, the future belongs to those who embrace challenges, adapt with tenacity, and keep pushing forward. Keep growing, keep pivoting, and most importantly, stay tenacious in your pursuits. Thank you for tuning in, and I look forward to bringing you more insightful conversations in our upcoming episodes. This is Sonia signing off, but as always, keep chasing your dreams with tenacity.